What's good? It is Sam here, and I have an awesome treat today where we're going to go through our third iteration of our power rankings. And we're going to tell you who is actually number one through number 11 when it comes to the Democratic candidates that are running for president. What we do is take the macro data to try to build a model to try to understand who is number one versus stuff like polling or opinions, right? We want to see what's actually happening. So at the end, we also compare our ranking to the Real Clear Politics aggregation of polling data on a national level. And we get to see what's different versus reality versus what the polling is saying. So with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you that are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Let's get into it. Okay, so this power ranking has 7 factors. I'm going to quickly just run through the 7 factors. I'm not going to go into the details of the calculations because if you want to see that, you can go back to the channel and watch each one of these individual 7 videos to understand the methodology I'm using and the exact calculations and everything associated with each one of these. So we're going to try to stay a little bit higher level here. And the first factor is Google search volume. So we're using Google because it's the second largest site. It's the largest site on the planet. And what we do is we just look at the search volume for each one of these candidates in multiple different time periods. And we stack rank them 1 through 10, take an average, right? We do the same exact thing on YouTube. So YouTube search volume for whatever people search for on YouTube, we go over and we put in the candidates' names and we look in all 3 different categories, the 12-month, the 3-month, and the 1-month, then we take an average. And then what we do is we come over to Social Blade. Social Blade tracks the statistics associated with social profiles. So right here we just have Andrew Yang's YouTube channel here, and there's some of the data that we take off of here, like the views and the subscribers and whatnot, and we stack rank them 1 through 11, which are the candidates for the Democratic Party. Because we're trying to understand who is actually relevant. Who is America actually interested in, right? They're probably searching for them on Google. They're probably searching for them on YouTube. The biggest sites on the fucking planet. Their social media is probably going to be growing. So what we have for social media factors is we have each candidate's YouTube channel, each candidate's Twitter handle, each candidate's Facebook page. And we have different factors specific to each social platform that we stack rank 1 through 11. And the last factor that we have here is from Open Secrets. They aggregate the data around donations, and we take some of the donations data, like the percentage right here. This is the percentage of people who make small donations, right? A small donor is somebody who's defined as donating less than $200. And I think that is also more representative because when you look at it, all the data that comes out shows that somewhere between like say 60 to 80% of people don't even have $500 to cover an emergency if something were to happen. So donating $200 for these individuals is more impactful, and that's why I think having a larger portion of small donors is more representative of what the American public is actually interested in and putting their money behind. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna compare it to this, right? We're gonna take all of that macro data and we're gonna put it together. We're gonna compare it to this. So what is this? This is Real Clear Politics. They aggregate the polling data. As you can see over here on the left, we've got The Economist, Manmouth, The Hill, Politico. These are different companies or organizations that do polling. And if you've watched some of the other stuff on the channel, you know that we've deep dived into some of these polls where there's some of them might have say a couple hundred respondents, and they're trying to use this to say this is what the American public wants. 330 million people and 600 people represent what the American public is actually thinking about. I don't know. I don't think I have to tell you. I think you're fucking smart enough that you can figure out the 600 people. I don't give a shit what statistics say. is not necessarily going to be accurate. And I have studied statistics for a number of years. Like, I understand how they work, but when you look at this, you see that there's a discrepancy. They're generally in the right direction, yes, but the sample size is just a little bit too small for me. When we have, it's 2019 and we have other ways of gathering this information way more accurately without all these biases for people opting into polls. And so what it is, I took all 7 of those factors, right? The Google search volume, the YouTube search volume, I also rank their website. I completely forgot to put that in here. But what I use is this site here, and this is Alexa. This is actually the another factor that we use in our rankings. If you were counting the factors, this one I actually had not included. But what we do is we stack rank each candidate's website by 3 different factors, 1 through 11, based upon the data from this site. So Alexa is they gather engagement around a website to better understand some of the key drivers of what's happening, where traffic's coming from. It's just basically an analytics type of a company, but they also provide other tools that people can use on a macro level for marketing and other things like that. And they'll rank websites, and I'll put in Andrew Yang's website so you get to see what it would come. You run the analysis and it will give you some data on the site here, right? So where the website ranks, we want to see where the website ranks in the United States. So in the United States, 3,100, and we stack rank them 1 through 11. And I took all of this fucking data and we put it into a spreadsheet, and this is what we came up with. So the top 5 candidates as of November 8th, Bernie Sanders is number 1, Andrew Yang is number 2, Elizabeth Warren number 3, Gabbard is number 4, and Biden is number 5. So let's take a look at what we just talked about with Real Clear Politics. Actually, let's dive into the number first, and then we'll compare that to Real Clear Politics, and then we'll get into the comments. So if you want to leave a comment on any of your thoughts on any of this, leave it down below. Use the hashtag Stolt, and at the end of the videos, I do like to respond to the comments live at the end of the video. So we're going to be getting into those shortly. But these are the factors that I just went over, right, across the top here. And we see that donations only has 2 rankings. Donations is it's a quarterly reported number, so I don't have it just whenever I want. The data only comes out quarterly. At the end of every quarter, the candidates have to report to, I think it's FEC or something like that, the finance committee for the donations for running for president. And so that's why we only have 2 for that. But you can see the dates along the top here of when we've done these other rankings. If you want to check out any one of these, go back to the channel. But what we have here is we can see that how somebody's changing over time. Like, look at this. Kamala Harris is losing ground in the most recent one. Amy's losing ground. Here's a good one. Elizabeth Warren. She's gaining a tremendous amount of speed, right? She was at 6th in August, 5th in September, 2nd in a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to be updating this perpetually as we move forward through this. But what we have here is the YouTube, and then we have their website, and then Facebook and Twitter, and we come all the way over here, and we can see Bernie Sanders is number 1. So he went from the last power ranking, 2nd to 1. So Bernie Sanders has improved, and you can see his score went from a 3. So what is this score, right? Well, let's take a look at that. Well, the score is each one of the individual ranking factors divided by 7. So it's just the average of all 7, right? We have 7 factors. We take all them together, and we divide by 7. So we just get the average score for each candidate, right? So for here, we have I'm just going to highlight a couple of these. For Bernie Sanders, we have this right for Google. So we take this plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this. Here we go across the board, divided by 7. And that is what comes out to be the score. So we can see that he was 271, then 3, then 2.43. So he's gaining ground. Number 2 is Andrew Yang. We see that he had a score of 1 0.57. He was doing tremendously well. He's still doing very well. Number 2 overall, completely underrated. He's number 2. His score is 2.71. But what's super interesting here to me is Miss Gabbard. Number 4 in our overall ranking here. She had a score of 4.14, where you see right here that she wasn't even ranked. Because when I started this in September, she was not in the debate in September. So I didn't include her. She wasn't in the debate, right? You would think that that debate is a pretty representative of who is the most relevant factors, right? Because that's what the DNC would like you to believe. But you see here that clearly not. After the other debate, and she was her name was already popping up, but after the other debate, she's number 4 overall. She's beating Joe Biden. Like, and this is on very, very macro level data. And so some people bring up in the comments that, oh, well, these are just internet things and you're not going to actually have the turnout. Well, if you do any type of research, like higher turnout is expected for 2020 relative to 2016 based on the midterm elections and the turnout that we're already seeing. The trends on a macro level are pointing to having one of the most engaging elections for 2020. If you look at just the diversity of the candidate pool here, this has never happened before. The internet is bringing a whole new realm of candidate to run for president, and they're getting their message out there that's not distilled and distorted through some legacy media player that they have to go through the news, because there's a little thing here called the internet, and they can get their message out through the internet. And that is, I think, one of the reasons why we have Andrew Yang, and one of the reasons why we have Gabbard, because of these things. So I thought that was super interesting. But let's go over here and we'll deep dive into our ranking, like reality versus what Real Clear Politics does. So what I did right here is I just took, this is the one we were just looking at. I took the score, right? We have Biden, Warren, Sanders, blah, blah, blah. And I just took their placing, 1 through 12-ish. And I put them, I inverted them and I had them along the side here, right? So we can see here, this is just the difference in this column. Make sure you can see this. This is just the difference in this column. So I highlighted 4 people who they're completely off on. So we have first, Andrew Yang. They are the most off on Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is actually polling number 2, as we mentioned, but they have him at number 8. That's a huge discrepancy. Another one is, who is this? Amy Klobuchar. They have her at number 6. She's not fucking doing anything. How is she number 6? I just don't understand how you even have her at 6. That blows my mind to have her at 6. She's like, I mean, look across the board. She's just a bunch of 10s and 11s across the board. She's not doing it at all. I found that kind of funny. Oh, here's another one you need to highlight. Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden, they have him at number 1. He's number 5. Just get it straight. Like, by the way, if you guys enjoy what we're doing, if you guys find any value in what we're doing, share this video with somebody else. Like, we need to get the message out there. It's 2019, and there's a better way of doing things, right? Like, there's a more intelligent, thoughtful consideration to understand what the American public is thinking about. I'm not saying it necessarily is this way, but we need to have that discussion because the polling data is straight up wrong. Here we have Gabbard. She's off by 5 spots. So they have her ranked at 4th, and when actually, I'm sorry, they have her ranked at 9th when actually she's ranked at 4th. That's a big discrepancy by 4 spots. Like, being off by 1 spot, cool. I get it, right? I understand how you can be off by 1 spot, right? Because there's a degree of error. 1, 2 spots. There's a bunch of people who are off by 2 spots. Even like Cory Booker, like he's in the tail half of it. But I mean, I'm just highlighting the bigger discrepancies here. The last person we have here, which is kind of interesting, is Tom Steyer. So they have him ranked as number 12th. But when you look at the macro data, which we've just talked about, he's actually ranked number 8. So for somebody who is just like very out there and necessarily hear a lot about. To be ranked number 8th is kind of interesting when you look at this, because I think his strategy has been much more towards the uh, baby boomer type population, and to start proliferating through people who are using the internet to a much greater extent than maybe baby boomers are, I think, and still ranked number 8. I think that's tremendous. That could be something very interesting to watch as we go through our next iteration of these power rankings. So if you want to see something else or have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And if you use the hashtag Stolt in the comment section, what happens is I can find your comment over here and I can respond to it. So let's scroll through here and talk about some of these comments. So right here we have Music Spinner. What's good, Music Spinner? Thank you so much for the comment. By the way, don't forget to subscribe if you are here still at this point in the video. I do videos all the time. Dope video, awesome to see the youth turnout data, solid predictions. So as we mentioned, some people think that data that we're looking at doesn't represent voters, but if you look at the Pew Research data, they are predicting that in 2020, the 53 and younger, so that's under baby boomers, are going to represent about 63% or something of the total voting population in 2020. Where do 18 to 53-year-olds spend a lot of their time? The internet, right? And that's the big factors that are coming into the 7 overall in the power ranking. So I just went over a little bit of the data in the New York primary. If you want to check out that video, click back on the channel and say what's good. Let's come down here. This is from Josh Ring, where they mention Yang Gabbard can win the whole thing. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. What do you think about a Gabbard and Yang VP and president role? That would be super interesting. That would be very, very interesting to see and watch, see if that does play out at all. I don't see any other comments with hashtag Stoltness, so let's just jump over here to Mandel. This will be the last comment we have here. Young people who research candidates are much more likely to vote than the entire cross-section of old people. Rather, people specifically researching candidates is more likely to vote than folks cold called. So your research filters out the young non-voters. You're getting the young voters. You're getting the young voters. Polling is like TV commercials, purchases for binge TV shows. Mandel, thank you so much for the comment. I'm not sure what, I kind of get a little bit lost in the comment, I believe. But I think what you're saying, in essence, is that there's a large portion of the population that does use the internet, where when you take the 2 largest sites on the frickin' planet, there's a lot of data there relative to a poll where you might have several hundred or a couple thousand people. You have millions of searches on Google of what people are actually interested in, not some poll they had to opt into, which when you opt into anything, you create some type of bias, period, across the board. The answers are going to be skewed no matter what. Then you have the way the questions are answered, right? So they said statisticians try to word questions very specifically so that there's not any type of framing bias, meaning the way the question is worded, you are going to influence the way the answer is. But just by having that conversation about how the question is going to be worded and trying to think about how to put it in a way where it doesn't influence the answer is going to influence the answer, right? Because you're asking people a fucking question versus actually watching their actions. If somebody's like, hey, I want to retire early, and I look at their bank account and I see that they're just spending their entire fucking paycheck, then they don't really want to retire early. The same thing happens. Like, you can ask polling data versus you can watch people's actions. Like, what are they actually fucking searching for? Who are they actually following? Right? What websites are they actually going to? And that's what we capture in this power ranking. So if you want to share this video with somebody else you think gets value in it, it really does help out the channel. Don't forget to press that like button and that subscribe button. Peace.